the globe who have registered in the C20 website. Besides this, some 500 plus civil societies who have shown a keen interest on this particular engagement group on diversity, inclusion, mutual respect. And of course, those participants who have registered for this webinar, there will be around 675 plus participants. So I, on behalf of the organizer, welcome each and one of you all to this webinar. Besides this, today we have a distinguished panel of speakers from Mandir Nivedita to Swami Paramatmanandaji, whom we have requested, and he has kindly consented to be here as a chief guest here. And we have Ramakrishna Mission, then Dr. Shashi Balaji, Dr. Joram Begi, and also Professor Oinam Bhagat, who will be sharing with you. I shall be introducing each of them as we proceed along. Now, with this, welcoming you once again to this webinar, I would now request Sri Vinayak Shankarji to kindly present the working of this engagement group and the activities done so far. Before doing that, I'd just like to briefly introduce Vinayakji. Vinayakji is professionally an engineering graduate from College of Engineering, Pune. Did his engineering in '89 in a mechanical stream. And then he has been serving with the Tata Motors for quite some time in different areas, and his basic areas of professional engagement with Tata Motors had been in the research work, in crash safety work, intellectual property rights, where during that time he has also worked on patents, 11 inventions for patents, out of which 10 had been granted, and has contributed a lot to the Tata Motors. But then he opted out and and resigned from the company at a very early stage, voluntary retirement, because he had an inner calling, and since his beginning he has been always associated with culture. During his school days as well as his college days, he has been a very active participant in the cultural field, especially in writing plays. He has written 6 one-act plays and 2 two-act plays also, which many of them has been awarded, received recognition and prizes also. Besides, he is a short story writer, and he has been, since his active cultural and social life as a calling, he had switched over early retirement, and then joined many organizations. So he is actively working with the Rashtriya Swayamsevak, the Vivekananda Kendra, and Sanskar Bharati. And another very interesting thing, he has completed his MA in Indology. That shows his interest in the area of culture. So with this few words, introduction, may I request Vinayakji to kindly present before the working of this engagement group. Vinayakji.
Sorry. With this presentation, I'm going to show how the working group on diversity, inclusion, and mutual respect has structured the of what theme they have decided to have structured dialogue on this particular area. Give me some time. I'm finding some difficulty here.
Vivek, if there's any support which is needed to Vinayakji, please.
Yeah, I'm not able to move pages. That was my problem. So this particular working group has India coordinator as Dr. Joram Begi from VKIC, that is Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture, and international coordinator are Dr. Shashi Balaji, who is from ICCS, which is International Council for Cultural Studies. When group started discussing, group found that diversity is quite natural. It is seen in every part of the universe or on the earth also. Everywhere we see diversity. But what all of us expect is that there should be harmony in the diversity, which will make everything very peaceful. And the moment we realize that we are all part of the same supreme being, then probably we are very easy to adjust ourselves to diversity, because we are saying we are all one and there is nothing like a diversity. One must reach to that level. So topic one, which came to the group has decided, diversity and inclusion of those people who have unfortunate circumstances, typically people who are with mental and physical disabilities. Those will be dealt in this particular topic. The topic two is about the persons who do not fall into a category of, let's say, male or female, or those who are transgenders, etc. You know that this is becoming a topic of discussions across world, but group felt that we must take a long-term view which will protect family and society by large by keeping a balance between material and spiritual human beings. The topic three, which was dealt or which is decided, is cultural faiths and traditions. They need to be protected out of from tribal and other disadvantaged communities. There were times, once upon a time, when people felt the world should have a new order and the old order should be scrapped. But now world is now reaching to saying that no, in order to maintain the harmony, we must look at the various communities and their traditions and their cultures. The fourth topic, which is going to have some subtopics as well. The broader title is Respecting Native Traditions All Over the World. It has various sub-themes or subtopics. One is that most of the cultures are in such a way that wherever they live, they have developed a culture which is environmentally conscious, which helps, the culture helps in protecting environment as well as biodiversity. Is another subtopic comes in bringing into mainstream the marginalized and economically weaker sections. They need to be uplifted and they should come to the mainstream. Third subtopic is network in exchange among native and traditional communities. They should not be left around. In fact, there is a lot of things to learn from these communities and their traditions, and which may be helpful to solving certain problems which we are facing as a chronic problem at social level. Then revitalization of excluded cultures and societies. This is a fourth subtopic. Then what we case is respecting native traditions all over the world, because now since the world is quite well connected, we have got a lot of communication means, and therefore the concept of minority cannot be applied to a particular geographical area. Now this has to be looked at the global level or at universal level. Then we come across human. Then the group deliberated on about looking at various rights, like human rights or women empowerment. But it is important that why you are respecting these rights to be exercised by various human beings. It is necessary to look at the cultures, the traditions, and whatever practices being followed. They have to be in tandem with those practices and cultural values. This is what we have to look at, the various rights what we are talking of. So till now, various programs have happened in past, and a lot of programs have been arranged in the future also. I'll just throw some light on that. In January 23, there were a roundtable conference of 19 civil societies at Brahmapur at Odisha. Then similarly, there were 8 civil societies which also came together at Bhubaneswar in the same month. In the month of February, a group from Lithuania visited India, and then they presented to the cultural programs about how the diversity was protected at Lithuania and what were their experiences. These are the programs which has been planned from March, April, May, June, and July. There are some programs are known as Chaupal. This is basically means a roundtable conference, and some are called as Samajashala, means addressing a group of people, giving a lecture to a group of people. This is called as Samajashala. So you can see all such programs have been arranged till June, July. In June, we are going to have a final seminar where the group will be preparing a policy brief, and which that policy brief will later on will be taken up with government functionaries, and after that finalized policy brief will be presented at summit seminar to be organized on 30 and 31st July at Jaipur, which will be the final seminar for these G20 initiatives which is happening in our country currently. This is the final seminar, and I'm just trying to show you where is the Namsai located in Arunachal Pradesh. It will be on 10th and 11th June 2023. So we all of us are now, we want all the people who have joined this international seminar to, you can take initiatives to organize local level meetings with NGOs who are working in this area, serving in this particular area. Or if such meeting has been arranged, you yourself can participate in such meetings and share your experiences. You share the experiences, share recommendations, share success stories. This is what is expected by this group from all of you who are present at present. And nonetheless, it is important that whatever messages are being generated, whatever conclusions, recommendations are being generated through all these initiatives, they should be taken up to the young generation who are going to look at the world order in future. Even their participation is very, very important to whatever recommendations are being generated from all this work and all these programs which has been arranged. So we can engage with colleges, universities, various students group. Uh, there is need to go across them, talk about them about various subjects which is handled under civil society's 20s, and seek their participation and even seek their recommendations as well. So the group is looking at your feedback, recommendations, examples of success, what we call as udaharan. That means this is what has actually happened. Somebody tried some kind of a different ways of looking at the problem and whether that helped to solve the problem, this kind of a thing. So please send all this information to WGDIMR, which is Working Group Diversity, Inclusion, Mutual Respect at vkendra.org. With this, I thank you for the patient listening and opportunity for me to give a presentation on this particular structure of this working group. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Vinayakji, for your sharing on this engagement of this working group and the future areas. We look forward for all your support. This is a beginning of a larger work which is evolving. With this, now we'll be proceeding on to listen to our speakers. Before I go on to introducing each one of them and then asking them, I'd just like to share with you that after each of them speak, 5 of our speakers will be speaking, and then after each of them speak, at the end of the 5th speaker, we'll have a question answer session. So we request all of you to kindly note down your question, also put them into the chat box or the question answer column so that we can take the questions at the end of the 5th speaker. And after that, after the question answer session, we'll have the concluding address by Pujya Paramatmanandaji. That is how it will proceed. And so this will take us, the way we have designed this webinar, close to 7 p.m. Right. With this, I would now like to introduce our first speaker for this evening, Mananiya Nivedita Bhide, who is a life worker of Vivekananda Kendra, who left her home at a very early age, at the age of 19 years, to join as a full-time worker in Kanyakumari and dedicate her life for social service as a Jivan Vrati worker of the Vivekananda Kendra, an organization which is started with a living memorial of Swami Vivekananda, founded by Eknath Ranadeji. She is a renowned social worker, working and an author and a prominent proponent of Indian culture and tradition and value. She has written over 15 books and presented papers in national and international seminars and given lectures in IITs and universities across the country, including abroad also in Kansas University in the USA. Her responsibilities including training of Jivanvatis, which are dedicated full-time workers of Vivekananda Kendra, training of the teachers of Vivekananda Kendra Vidyalayas, and closely guiding the working of the Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture, Guwahati, who is working in the Northeast. She has represented Indian seminars on Swami Vivekananda and conducted by ICCR in 2013 at Melbourne, Australia. She also participated in the International Meeting of Educational Experts at Darwin, Australia, convened by the UNESCO for the Asia Pacific region in 1999. Duty was conferred the Padma Shri in 2017. Mananiya Nivedita is presently the All India Vice President of Vivekananda Kendra Rock Memorial and Vivekananda Kendra Kanyakumari. She is the steering committee member of the C20. Steering committee happens to be the executive committee of the C20. I'll take just one more minute to just share about Vivekananda Kendra's work, the service activities, which is spread across the 24 states and 2 union territories. Total branches of more than 1,000 branches across the country, including Jammu and Kashmir. Major focus of work is in the Northeast and works in diversified fields as education through its Vivekananda Kendra Vidyalayas network of schools. We also have schools in Andaman and Nicobar Island, the health, the Medical Research Foundation, then cultural research such as the VKIC and the VKICOM, then strategic affairs such as the Vivekananda International Foundation, sustainable development initiatives such as the NARDEP, which is based in Kanyakumari, then informal education as the Anandalaya rural development projects and the Janjati welfare projects. With this, may I request Manina Nivedita to share her thoughts on this theme. Thank you.
My namaskars to you all. This is a very great opportunity for India to have the presidency of G20 and the various vertical groups which are there along with G20, like Labor 20, that is from 20 countries, the labor organizations coming together and deliberating. Then Women 20, Youth 20, Business 20, Think Tank 20, like that various verticals are there. The C20, that is Civil Societies 20, has its own a very unique place in this, because these are basically the civil societies which come together, organize themselves, associate themselves, and they take up the topics which concern the various sectors of the society, and they do a lot of consultations with various stakeholders and make recommendations and take it to G20 leaders. So this year, as India has got the presidency of G20, even the presidency of C20 is with India, and we are really happy that Mata Amritanandamayi Devi is the chairperson for this C20 group. And India, with her civilizational experience of thousands of years together, passing through various time periods, various vicissitudes, has rich experience in how to look at the problems of the society and work for it. So we are really happy that in the work of civil societies that is going on since a few years, this year India will be adding her own flavor to it, or her own addition to it. As we know that civil societies have, that compassion or that concern for various sectors of the society, and that is how they come, they work, they form themselves into a civil society, or the more known word for many is non-governmental organization to some extent, and they work for the society. So many times I just say that it is less of a profession, or it should be less of a profession and more of a mission. That because of the concern for the society, we come together and we work. Now in C20, this is what is expected, that the topics which are taken earlier, they continue. But of course, in the new context, the new developments or the new challenges, various other additions are done to these themes which are taken up for consultations. This year, C20 India has taken total 14 working themes, and many are continued from the last year. But we also know that from earlier years, but we also know that earlier means last 2-3 years there was COVID. So few topics were related to COVID, which we have dropped this year, and we have taken the topics which have always concerned the civil societies. Now coming to our today's theme of deliberation, that is diversity, inclusion, mutual respect. We know that civil societies the world over have always been concerned about the human rights, and also about the inclusion, the equity, and they recommend for that, they work for that. And that is how there are various topics which have been discussed earlier on inclusion, on diversity, or on human rights. But coming specifically to today's topic, we know this topic has been discussed not necessarily in C20. A part of it was discussed in earlier C20s, but it is in public discourse since a few years, and that is called as diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, that is DEI. And this DEI is being discussed and being applied in universities and all that, and in various ways. But as the working started of this DEI, that is diversity, equity, inclusion, it was found that there are certain difficulties were noticed. That is, human rights is the concern, but the very extreme application of diversity, equity, inclusion, or in order to promote the inclusion, what mutual jealousy or hatred was provoked, not maybe consciously, but maybe unconsciously, whatever. So because of that, the society, instead of having a harmonious acceptance of each other, actually it led to exclusion of some other communities. This is what is happening. Another thing, the means many such drawbacks are what we intended. That is what the civil societies intended, what they wanted. But actually what was happening, seeing that, we decided to improve upon the topic, and that is diversity, inclusion, mutual respect. Whatever we want to include, whosoever are the ignored things or whatever topics are there, we have to see to it that everyone is included, but not at the cost of something else, or it should not lead to more animosity, and therefore we thought that the harmony aspect which was missing, we should focus on that. And that is why we have improved upon this topic and taken it as a working theme. It is diversity, inclusion, mutual respect. So when things are diverse, and things are diverse, variety is the plan of nature. We know on a tree, no two leaves are exactly the same. They may look similar, but they are never the same. Same way, each one, as generally we say in coordinate geometry, each point has its own geometrical coordinates, and no 2 points have same coordinates. So same way, every individual is unique in its own way. So diversity is the plan of nature. But that diversity becomes acceptable, that diversity can lead to harmony only if we take the things in long view, as well as we also have mutual respect. And that mutual respect can come only if we have that vision of oneness. That is, the whole universe is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. It's not that somebody is different from me or unconnected to me. Today, whether it is quantum physics, whether it is ecology, whether it is cellular biology, various subjects are realizing this interconnectedness, interrelatedness, and interdependence of the universe. And therefore, when any topic that we civil societies want to take, this oneness and therefore a sort of respect to all, and also the a compassion, a feeling of fellow feeling has to be the basis of everything. And that is what India really intends to add to all the themes that we are discussing in C20 14 working groups. Now, when we say diversity, inclusion, mutual respect, we found some 9 points we had to take, we have taken into account through our discussions and all. And further, we will be taking these points and we shall discuss with many others. The sub-themes were already told, but what was the basis of we arrived at those sub-themes? That's what I would like to share with you. First and foremost is, though we talked of inclusion, in earlier, though we talked of inclusion, actually what has happened is it led to exclusion of certain person. Means if we are insisting on including something, we look down upon something which is not like us, it is different. So it should not happen. The inclusion is everyone gets included, everyone is part of this society. So that should be the purpose. And therefore, the inclusion should not lead to denial of someone else or the disrespect or the exclusion. Secondly, to give, for example, when the transgender issue under this same topic slowly is being discussed all over the world, and now it is also going as part of education and all that. In that, the children are made to, decide their gender, which, because it was felt that the child will be then spared the emotional upheaval, and which sometimes leads to depression or even to suicide. But actually the data was very, very minimal, and yet the decision was taken. And we are seeing what has happened. The commercialization entered into that, the pharmaceutical commercialization. And today the children are goaded to undergo irreversible surgeries to change their body. And once it is changed, their whole life is lost. We don't allow a minor to vote. We don't allow a minor to enter into property, dealings. But we are allowing a minor to take the decision to change his body because the commercialization has set in. And therefore, instead of means taking care of human rights, what has happened is we are trampling on the human rights of the children to live properly, to understand the issues properly once the maturity comes. And that is what that also needs to be catered to. Then another thing that we saw, that, in diversity and inclusion, the topic which was discussed earlier, only the individuals are considered. That is, a person is taken only as an individual. Maybe that is the need in contract-based societies, where everything is only contract. Even marriage is a contract. Everything is a contract. So in contract-based society, individual that is focusing only on individual and formulating the recommendations may be the need, but that is not so in relation-based society. In many countries, many civilizations, an individual is not just an individual. He is or she is part of a family, part of a community, part of a tradition, part of a locality, part of a civilization, and as such, of course, we are all part of humanity. So all these linkages are to be taken into account. Today, even the science talks the same thing. Science says even the subatomic particle cannot be defined in itself. It is defined only by its relations with others. So the relations become important. And therefore, when we talk of rights, when we are talking about this diversity inclusion, we cannot just focus on the individual. A person who is part of relation-based society, he has a right. He very much has a right to be part of a family. He wants to be a part of family. He does not want to live alone. He wants to be part of a community, part of a cultural tradition. But disregarding all those identities, if we are focusing only individual identity, gender identity, then actually we are doing disservice to that person. So we have to take also into account that it's not just a contract-based society, but it's a relation-based society. Even in contract-based society, individuals have linkages, and those linkages also matter to him, and whether he realizes or not, they are required for wholesome growth of a human being. Another problem which at present humanity is facing, it is short-termism. Even we see in political field, everything is decided only up to the next election. So what is to be done? The whole good of the humanity is not taken into account. So decisions are short-termism. Whatever we are doing, whatever we are recommending, whatever we are going to implement as policy in our universities, in our society, what will be its long-range impact? That if we don't take into account, then there will be, the families will be disbanded, they will be disintegrated, communities are disintegrated, the nature is exploited. Therefore, whatever is to be done, its long range impact is to be considered. So that is what, when we talk of mutual respect, it means that we are respecting the families, the society, the nature. So whatever recommendations we do, they should take into consideration this. Then there is another problem which we want to course correct by adding mutual respect to the topic, and that is, there is universalization of certain definitions. So a universal definition is done, and that is what is applied to many others. I will give just one or two examples. In 1951, United Nations, what is economic development? It decided. How it is achieved? It decided. So it was a universal definition done for all the civilizations. And therefore, in its 1951 resolution, United Nations said that as long as the countries follow the ancient philosophies and ancient traditions, the countries cannot have economic development. And therefore, this all will have to be destroyed, dismantled. Though the process is painful, we will have to take to it. Fortunately, United Nations realized it after, say, 50 years. And then they said that no, there is no uniform fit-all model for economic development. Each nation has its own cultural traditions, and as per that, the nation has to develop. So this is what United Nations realize. So same way, whether it is economic development, whether it is religion or tradition, no, there cannot be a single universal definition of it, good or bad or whatever it is. But because of such definitions, then we discard certain communities. We say your religion is primitive. We say, you know, you are outdated. We say this tradition, cultural tradition is no more required. And that is how it is taught. And somewhere that community gets in a way excluded from the process of confident development. And that is what there should not be universalized definitions. We have to take the context into account to decide what should be the text for development of that community. Similarly, revisiting of certain terms is required. As you know, the world is more connected with each other. Global village and all people use the word. When that is there, we cannot go by the terms which were coined and are still being applied for various inclusion process in various countries. For example, the minority, you know, the minority term we apply. But today we cannot decide a minority in national context. When the whole world is connected, we should actually decide. So when we are talking of inclusion, it is not a minority in national context, but it has to be a global minority. If really it is a global minority, then we have to see how the process of inclusion should be done for them so that they are not left behind in the process of development. Thus, some revisiting of the terms also may be required. Similarly, insistence of uniform methods, how to solve, you know, or what is women empowerment. If you do this, then women empowerment is there in this country. Or human rights, this is how it is there. That's how till now it has been, that we civil societies, we define what is human right, we define what is women empowerment as per our experience, and then maybe we try to apply it for the whole world. But now the time has come, as we know, in 2005, the G20 nations, as the United Nations realized, the G20 nations also realized that there is no uniform fit-all method for economic development. So as G20 leaders have realized, I think the time has come for C20 also to realize it, that we should not prescribe the uniform methods for all to define the development, the human rights, the women empowerment, and such topics. So when we are talking of diversity, inclusion, mutual respect, what really we are saying is, it is not only the diversity of people, but it is also diversity of interpretations, diversity of methods applied for human development. And we must respect each other's methods. So if any civilization is having a different method, we must respect that method. And coming to the last point, very important point. Sorry, two more points. And when we talk of inclusion, but you know, there are many native traditions, or better say traditional communities all over the world. You know, they have no voice, whether in United Nations, or they are not even much even understood. So they need interlinking, they need support of the whole civil societies to develop confidently in their own tradition. So this is also the real inclusion we need to do, not only of individual, but also of traditional communities. And coming to the last point, this is India's presidency. So we don't believe, and almost all civilizations don't believe, as Jesus Christ had said, that man cannot live by bread alone. So man is not only material being, he is also a spiritual being. the ultimate aim of human life is not just, the economic development or the material development, but it is also the spiritual development. And that is why we have taken the civil societies this year have chosen this motto, you are the light. We start with ourselves. And what is our aim? It is ultimately Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. It is well-being of all. So taking the spiritual development of the human being into account, even the material development or focus on that needs to be moderated. It's only then everyone will have everything that is required. The greed will be moderated, and the real human development can take place. So thinking all these points, our working group has decided the sub-themes, which already was shown to you in PowerPoint, that taking care of those who are born unfortunate. Also, the issue of what nowadays it is called as LGBTQ. Of course, there may be some people have different inclinations, but we have to take into account that what is natural, what is required, for the perpetuation of the society, of the families, of the human race, also cannot be ignored. Then there is also the need of taking, the need of supporting the self-confidence and the work of the native communities in India. Or native is not the right word, we should say the traditional communities in India who are following their cultural traditions since time immemorial, and also including all the native traditions all over the world. And fifth is respecting various methods. And so in that, some more sub-themes are there, which already we have seen. And thus, this C20, when we are dealing with this topic, let us take into account the law, not the short-termism, but a long-term view. Also, the spiritual development of a person, the harmony of the society, the diversity as the very truth of existence, and also the interconnectedness of the universe, of the existence as the truth of existence. So I will conclude. Swami Vivekananda had said, the truth does not pay homage to society. The society has to pay homage to truth or perish. So the truth of existence is we are all interconnected, interrelated, interdependent. We can only work for the harmony in the society, but diversity is also the fact of existence. So everyone must have its own place and respect, and only then the human society, instead of getting perished, it will really go in long way and realize its divine nature. So with these words, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mananiya Nivedita Didi. Very lucidly and elaborately, she has, explained the various areas of the sub-themes also, and how India has always been organic whole. How the family systems is very important, and the natural growth process, evolution, of course, spirituality, which is the foundation of our culture, of our Sanatan Hindu Dharma. So with this, we move on to the, may I also remind once again, any questions specifically to Nivedita may kindly be put in the box, which will take up after the end of the fifth speaker. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Professor Dr. Shashi Balaji, a renowned Indologist, currently the Dean of Bhavan's KM Munshi Center of Indology, and on chair Acharya Raghuvira of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, New Delhi. She is a recipient of the highest civilian state award by the President of Mongolia, an alumnus of the Himachal University, Shimla. She specializes in India's cultural contribution to other Asian countries, a very important area of work. She has authored and edited 25 books and presented 110 research papers at international conferences and seminars. She taught history of Japanese art and South Asian art for 14 years at the National Museum Institute, New Delhi. He had documented objects of Asian art and culture preserved in museums and monuments in several countries. As a researcher and explorer, she has traveled to several countries, China, Japan, Mongolia, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Nepal, Bhutan, UK, Germany, France, Belgium, Vietnam, to just name a few of these countries. And she is now a consultant to the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, a member of the Anusandhan Parokstha Bharatiya Shikshan Mandal, founding members of the International Buddhist Conference, the joint secretary of the Antar-Rashtriya Sahyog Parishad. He is the president of the International Council of Cultural Studies, Bharat. She is a member of the International Advisory Committee, and it serves as the advisory body to the steering committee and the C20 work. Before requesting her to speak, I'd like just share a few words about the Indian West Council of Cultural Studies, where she is presiding over the Indian chapter. The International Center for Cultural Studies was established in Nagpur, India, by a group of academics and volunteers in 1997 who were interested in studying the similarities among various countries. The vision of ICCS is universal well-being is based on the age-old Indian wisdom of spirituality. ICCS started out as an institute for Indo-African studies, and then in the last 2 decades, it has networked globally with leaders who share the vision of universal well-being, as well as to cultivate strong bonds with native communities of Africa, Australasia, Europe, North America, South America, and Southeast Asia. Today, we are indeed very happy to have Dr. Shashi as the speaker. She will be dwelling on the topic as well as especially focusing on the native traditions all over the world, which is a sub-theme 4, I guess. She'll be focusing more on that. Please, Shashi, over to you. Thank you.
Am I audible? Ji. Param Pujya.
Yes.
Param Pujya Swami Paramatmanandaji Maharaj Ji, Nivedita Didi, Vinayak Ji, all the colleagues working together for this G20, C20 under G20. It's a great opportunity to bring the Indian perspective of solving world global problems. And Nivedita ji has given very rightly, she has raised some problems, and she has talked about what is really happening and what are they saying and what is the result and all these things. So me also, I want to show the theme. The sub theme is number 4, and under that sub theme number 4, I will speak about. I will give a presentation actually so that we can quickly move on. What is the agenda of the G20? But what are the questions that come to our mind as Indians? And what are the qualities that the world demands, and what is happening actually? How UN advocates diversity and inclusion, but actually what has been happening, and the solutions that from the Indian perspective, from Indian thought, from Indian philosophy of life, and the vision and the knowledge that has been bequeathed by our rishis, the munis, the acharyas, and the gurus. So please permit me to share my PPT with you so we can quickly move on.
Vivek, you kindly help her. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sharing the PPT.
You can also see.
Is it there now?
Yes.
Yeah, little wider.
Little hidden. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's coming up.
So the agenda, when I looked at the agenda of G20, we all find that they talk about collective approach to find solutions for crisis and problem management. But there is no solution. There is no single solution, as Nivedita ji said. But we have to talk about what kind of solutions can we have from the Indian philosophy, from the Indian knowledge systems. what is true happiness is another question. All the countries the world over, they talk about GDP, but Bhutan being a small country, it talks about gross national happiness. So how does this happiness can be brought to the nation? They are working on it. India is a distinct country. When we look at the globe, we see that India has a distinct personality because its knowledge, its vision, it's the life, the philosophy of life is given by the rishis, and that is based on the core philosophy of India is tyag, tap, sacrifice, generosity, dan, etc. So we have to include all these. Only then we can have a better world. We can have happiness. We can have happiness in the world, and we have to respect diversity. And that everybody has to be included. But what has happened here, I just wanted to talk about it, that India, there is a continuous history of more than 2000 years, that when the world around India, the neighboring countries, all the countries in Asia, they were following the path, the spiritual path shown by India. There were all everywhere there was happiness, there were progress. But as soon as these the powers who do not believe in diversity, they crushed them, they destroyed them. As soon as the Indian culture was destroyed in these countries, then it became a no man land. The example that I would like to give is from Central Asia. So many flourishing countries, because of not believing in diversity, they became a no man's land. So we have to find solutions. We have to add these things into our syllabus, into the school syllabus, etc., into the college, into the universities. So I also want to raise a few questions here, that worldwide, if you look at, we talk about peace, harmony, brotherhood, environmental consciousness, but what is really happening? There is all disharmony, exclusion, and war and terrorism, and capitalism has overpowered. It is harnessing the resources in such a way that, and because they believe that man is the master of nature. While in Indian, according to Indian philosophy, human being is not the master. We say, "Kena tyaktena munjita, ma grida kasya swidhanam." So we have to devise, the modern world has to learn from India, that how we can bring a balance in the ecosystem, how we can stop exploiting the nature and all these things. They talk about diversity and inclusion, but actually what happened to Roma, to Yazidis, to Hindus in Pakistan and Bangladesh? Thousands and thousands of people were just killed. I have been to many countries working on Roma, who were Indians, who went abroad because of many reasons, but they were all killed. I have been to certain places, to concentration camps also. How they were killed? Because they did not look like them, because they spoke a different language, because they had black hair, their traditions were different. So during the World War II, they were all finished, killed, brutally killed. And another question is about the Indians who were taken as indentured laborers to many countries for, but it was they were taken by the powers who were dominating at that time. What was dominating their minds was greed. And because we need to have a balance between the need and the greed. But today also, overconsumerism, violence, terrorism, termite, all is happening because we don't believe in this inclusion and mutual respect. So water bodies, marine life, and when we talk of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that does not mean only the human life, but we include into it the animal life, the plant life, the earth and the sky also. But we are polluting everything. What we need as solution is insight, inspiration, pure knowledge, experience, all these values, etc. So as Nivedita ji said, what you and advocates diversity and inclusion, but actually what happens was exclusion and discrimination. There is imbalance in the society. Authoritarian regimes have adopted capitalism and using the resources so much. There is no balance. So we have to do work on case by case study. We have to undertake research, case study by case study. So economic model offered by the modern thinkers and policy makers should be revised, looking into the Indian perspective. There is no policy of dumping the waste. We in India, we believed in Panch Mahabhuta, and whatever we produced was from the five basic elements. But now, because of plastic, there is so much happening, so much pollution, so much garbage all over the world. We are polluting the oceans also. So understanding and respecting each other's culture without any discrimination, without demeaning, leads to understanding, progress, peace, harmony, etc. Leads to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So why we say that Indian culture can give some solutions to the world? Because Indian culture is times tested. So our approach of growth is totally different, because yes, of course, we are in this world, we are born in this world. Materialism is important, but we believe in a balance in spiritual transcendence and material prosperity. So tena tyaktena bhunjita magridha kasya swidhanam. So we have to look into this. Then another point that I want to raise is that people are talking about climate change, but what the solutions are there in the Vedas that are not given space. The scientists who want to work on it, who are already working on this for years. One scientist I know who is working for more than 15 years, he's so frustrated because he can give a lot from the Vedic knowledge, but he's not given a chance. So we have to investigate and open the eyes of the world. Now I come to the native cultures. A number of cultures all over the world, especially in Europe, they were all crushed. Even people, even plants, even herbs, they were destroyed because they were different, and they wanted some similar kind of, when Christianity came, then they wanted some similar kind of people, similar thought, similar similarity in behavior. Everything has to be similar, but they did not believe in diversity. So native culture have the capacity of enriching the life. Native cultures have can tell us how there can be sustainable development. Local communities in many countries have to be empowered, because food and herb, the culture, it's very important, because according to Ayurveda, whatever is grown, wherever a person is born, whatever is grown around him is important and is good for his health. But today we have changed this, and herbal culture, native herbal and food culture is all destroyed in the name of modernity. Whatever is modern is equal to westernization. So we should look for locally available herbs which are cheap, because today the hospital, the medical system has become so difficult for many people that because of that they are suffering. Each house used to have its own plants. Even in India, we have so many plants, herbal plants. So they were used as remedies. There were shamans in many countries, and even now people are recovering. In Lithuania, there is one expert who has recovered more than 3,000 herbs. So local food culture and herbal culture should be promoted at the global level. And inclusion of ancient cultures can help the world in health, education.
I think he got disconnected. Vivek, is that so? Vivek, is that Siddha got disconnected, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, let me call her. Or
You can move.
Should I try to call her and then find out? She might not be aware also.
That will take further time.
Okay. Maybe Vivek can make the call while I move on to the next speaker. She got disconnected. She might not be aware of that also.
Am I audible now? Okay.
Oh, yes,
I'm sorry.
yes, please.
I was disconnected for a while.
Right.
So okay. I was talking about what happened in these countries. So let me come to that. So I was talking about the voiceless people. They are still voiceless, although there is a lot that has been said about raising the voice. And C20 is meant for taking the voice of the voiceless to the governments of the G20. So societies that are on margin should be included. There are many societies in the world, in many countries with whom we are working from ICCS, they are still marginalized and they are even threatened. If they follow their traditions, they are even killed. And so sometimes they are reluctant to show what they are doing and what their belief is. So, and another point is that these people in these countries who are following the native culture, they offer prayers to sun, to trees, to mountains, to rivers, all. So that means they are environmentally conscious people. When we worship a mountain, when we worship a river, then we don't pollute it. So traditional systems should be protected because they believe in nature and they want to protect it. Another point is that there is science behind many things. The way we live, the way we eat, the way we have our daily routine. So that has to be brought to light first by the Indians. We ourselves have to do this. Why do we take a bath in the morning? Why do we perform puja? Why do we do this and that? How do the fast, the rituals, all these things. So this has to be promoted and talk to the people. Just before this meeting, I had a meeting organized by the ICCR. There were delegates from 7 countries, and all of them were so happy to know about Indian way of life and thinking. Another point that I want to raise is that what is happening is that people who are environmentally conscious, but because the greedy people are there and they want to take away the lands from them, that is what has been happening in many places, like in Brazil. Brazil is going to be the next G20 host, so we want to talk about that also. ICCS has done a lot of work there among the societies, among the native societies in Brazil. So how their culture can be protected, but we have to take it forward to the government. So people of any country who are like this, who are environmentally conscious, their lands should not be snatched away. There are, for example, there are 305 ethnic groups speaking 275 languages. When we destroy their culture, then all the languages, all the distinctive identity, their traditions, their culture, everything everything fades with it. But that is very important, not only for them but for many other countries. So here I am giving you a list which we have prepared. We are planning to have organize around more than 25 programs. Some of them are almost in the final shape, but some of them are in the process, and some of them are waiting for the funds to be made available. So far, we are told that there are no funds, but I am hopeful that if we get some funds, then some of them we can really go forward. But here is a list in different cities. In collaboration with national and international delegates and organizations, ICCS is working on it. Here is the plan. Here is a list of the. I think it's too small to read, but I can share it later on. So with these words, I just conclude that we have to work to give voice to the voiceless. We have to bring the marginalized into the mainstream. We have to promote faith in unity and diversity, respect for all as one family, as we say in the motto Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Assimilate the noble thoughts from wherever they come. Ano Bhadra Kratavo Yantu Vishwata. If India has some thoughts, it can share. If other countries have some thought, they can share. So it's always we are open for sharing, and everybody should remain open for sharing to have the best from each all the countries and regions and these people. So include the forgotten. There is so much in our history, the history which can make Indians proud of what they gave, but gave to the world. What they shared with the world is so important, which is proved by a history of 2000 years. Millions of documents are scattered all over the world, but we are not much aware about it. So all the cultures who are destroyed or faded, they should be revisited, and revisit the spiritual path is very helpful, and we are organizing some programs or to highlight the relevance of ashrama and temple culture of India, because there can be nothing better than this to showcase that how Indian ashrama and temple culture, this automatically we learn, we are groomed in this, we are educated into this, our mind works like this. As soon as we enter a temple or an ashram, when we stay in an ashram, the mind works very differently. So for working on diversity, inclusion, and mutual respect, I think this is one of the very important topics. So there are other topics also. So with these words, I thank you all. I thank Param Puja Swami Paramatmanandaji Maharaj and all the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shashi Balaji, for your lucid words and sharing your experience across the globe. And I'm sure this is time, and hence, the right time the presidency has come to India, because and it also makes us more responsible as to how to equip ourselves more, because the world needs all this knowledge. So with this, we move on to the next speaker. I request our participants on the webinar to kindly keep their questions ready and also post it so that we can take it at the end of all the speakers. And now I would like to request Joram Begi ji, a short introduction of Begi ji. Dr. Joram Begi is an educationist whose forte or whose area is history, and is an education of national repute, and served as many institution principal of the government college in Itanagar. Then he was the registrar of the Arunachal University, now known as RGU, and he was the director of the Higher and Technical Education, Government of Arunachal Pradesh, and also the director of NERIS. These are two technical areas where he had a man of history, working in the area of technical education. He was also the State Chief Information Commissioner, Arunachal Pradesh Information Commission till July 2021. And a person who has been active all throughout his life, being an educationist. He's been active in various social organizations. He was the General Secretary of the Guwahati Arunachal Students Association, the founder president of NESCO, which is a forerunner to NESO, and the General Secretary of the Arunachal Pradesh College and University Teachers Association. And he's also associated with all the traditional institutions. Mostly he's the president of the Nisi Elite Society. Further, he is presently he's a member of CAB, the Pranta Sanchalak of Vivekananda Kendra, and the chairman of the Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture. He's also the chairman of Rewatch and the EC member of the Nagaland University. For us, we are indeed very privileged to have Dr. Joram Begi, who is the chairman of Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture, before I request him to speak, I would take a few minutes to share with you about this Institute of Culture, which is a project of Vivekananda Kendra, Kanyakumari, and the mandate of this organization is to do the documentation and research work here in the Northeast, the 8 states in the Northeast, with the motto of culture nurtures unity. The basic work is here how we work with the traditional communities, try to understand the traditional knowledge system or the wisdom, and we document this, and while documenting through research, we try to find out what is unifying us within the Northeast and with the rest of the country. So with the motto of culture nurtures unity, this VKSC has been serving and has completed 25 years of its operations here in the Northeast, of its service here in the Northeast. And presently, Dr. Joram Begi, who is also the national coordinator of this engagement group. May I now request Dr. Begi to kindly share his thoughts and request him to specifically speak on the sub-theme 3, focusing on the traditional communities and their approach, their worldviews, and how their way of life has been very inclusive and connected to the larger whole. Dr. Begi, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dipankar Mohantaji, and also Swami Paramatmanandaji Maharaj, Mananiya Nivedita ji, who is the member of the steering committee of this C20, Ramakrishnan ji, Professor Bhagat Oinamji, in fact, Professor Shashi Balaji, who has just spoken, who is also the international coordinator of this seminar. Just before beginning, one thing I would like to make note of this is that Dipankarji, please see the time constraint because still 3 more people are to speak after me.
Oh, yes.
And time left out is less than 1 hour. I don't know how long I speak. And secondly, I also joined with Dipankarji welcoming all these distinguished panelists and also 675 participants who are registered in this seminar. To begin with this, my simple understanding on the subject, diversity, inclusion, mutual respect, is this, that there are 8 billion people in the world today. I think no one can tell us that there are 2 persons 100% similar to each other. As Nivedita ji has also put it very nicely, that even from the leaves, 2 leaves of same tree are not similar. So this is different kind of things, that even those born twins are not similar. They are different physically, mentally, emotionally. And so is the case of plants and animals. Even the same species bred in different region, geographical region, has a different characteristics. Therefore, diversity is the fundamental law of nature, and thus it is unavoidable. In ancient Indian wisdom and many other civilizations, it was enunciated that one manifests in all. It is said that ikam sat bifra bahuda bhadanti, which means the truth is one, but it manifests in various forms. The whole universe is manifestation of divinity and is therefore interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent, as Nivedita ji has also made mention about this. This essentially means the inclusiveness of all in one, and thereby equity to all human beings, irrespective of gender, color, race, or region. This also means equal or mutual respect to their faith, religion, and ways of life, tradition, knowledge systems, ideologies, philosophies, languages, method for solving complex issues, and methods for inculcating their civilization values, etc. Unfortunately, during the last millennium, some people, particularly some people of particular region, consider themselves as superior, and their religions and gods are only true, and others are derided as inferior, backward, outdated, and even as false and evil. So therefore, they started a mission called Civilizing Mission. And in the name of civilizing missions, they have destroyed so many civilizations. As it has been mentioned that even I've seen that UN has a day, I think 9th of August, is being celebrated as International Indigenous Day. My utter surprise was that some religious organizations, that to a particular denomination, is taking forefront of organizing this indigenous faith. I wonder whether this is setting crocodiles tear, or it is a celebration that they have destroyed them everything, or they have awakened them so much that they will never be able to come up. In this context, I may also say so that in 2008 or so, the Australian president, I think it was Calvin Root, formally sought an apology to the native Australian that they have destroyed their culture. To me, this is a formal declaration that they have finished the native Australian. And so is this, last millennium or even till recently it has been happening. This case, even I wonder that UN resolution of 1951, as made mention by Nivedita ji, that all ancient philosophy is to be scrapped, ancient institutions to be disintegrated. So This is because these ancient culture, institutions, ancient thought are considered to be an obstruction for the rapid economic development. So therefore, further destruction took place, especially in the third world countries. However, UN has realized after more than 60 years, that is the Hangzhou resolution of 2013, that they realized that the problems of the world are not solved. As for example, population explosion, increase of poverty, increase of natural calamities, disasters, global warming. So they thought it must be changed. And of late they have realized that the harmony amongst the people are very, very important, and the connection of human being with nature, dignity, this has to be given important, and let people live according to their choice. And they also recognize that all sides do not fit in all. They have got different kind of method to solve their problems. This has been realized. But even today, after this realization, this destruction of converting, even by forcefully, especially by the exclusive religion, to the weaker sections, especially the tribals or other such backward communities, is matter of concern. This is also, I have seen that especially the Western anthropologists, they write like that naked Nagas or the Himalayan barbarians, that is making mockery of the lifestyle of the tribal people who are, because of the historical reason, left behind, has not been able to catch with development. Instead of sympathizing, this kind of a criticism, allegation are given to them, and the religions conversion also followed after that kind of a derided statement by the anthropologists. So this is a matter to be seen it, and I consider the C20 this is an opportunity, as Shashi Balaji has rightly said, to hear the voices from whom it has been never been heard. So this will be an opportunity to present their case in this seminar. Now onwards, in different places, it will be taking place. Especially, it will be culminated at Namsai, as it has been said that in the month of June, 10 and 11, precisely. So, through this seminar, this downtrodden people, backward people, and whose culture are being neglected. So this will be an opportunity, and in the World Forum, they will be able to raise this up. So this is my observation on the topic, and with this, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Archie, for your deliberation. In fact, you have rightly said about diversity being a fundamental law of nature, and somehow the people have forgotten about nature. Today's development process is taking away from nature, and I feel Northeast is the place of where people are still rooted to the nature, both internal as well as external. That way, and we really need to be conscious and aware about the missions which are still working in a country in the garb of civilizing people. Hence you have rightly said that C20 is an opportunity to get across to such remote places, people who are still practicing the traditions with full of wisdom, and probably we have to learn a lot from them. With this, we will move on to the next speaker. He's Ramakrishna Raman, and I'll quickly introduce Mr. Ramakrishnan to you. So Ramakrishnan is a qualified chartered accountant, and he's a co-founder and chairman of Exoni Capital and Artha and Macintosh Global Partners. He's known as Rama shortly, is professionally a chartered accountant and a cost accountant, a social entrepreneur, and an angel investor. He is a co-founder and chairman of Exoni Capital and Artha and Macintosh Global Partners, a global investment bank having presence in more than 50 countries, with its cross-border mergers and acquisition among the top 10 globally. He takes a lot of interest in innovations, startups, and entrepreneurships through mentoring, incubating, and funding. He is a past president of TiE Nagpur. TiE is a Silicon-based world's largest not-for-profit fostering startups and entrepreneurship. Rama is also advisory board member of Vigyan Bharati, an Indian science movement, and Karyakarta of Vivekananda Kendra, Kanyakumari. In fact, we look forward to listen to you, Ramakrishnaji, because today in the global scenario, you're working with many such enterprising youths as well as ventures, and I'm sure we all look forward to listen to you on the theme. Please, Ramakrishnaji.
Namaskaram, Param Pujya Swamiji, Nivedita Didi, Dr. Shashi Balaji, Dr. Joram Begi ji, and brothers and sisters. In fact, in the interest of time, I'll keep it short and crisp. We are already nearing 6:30. So what I propose to do is to sort of take this discussion into two parts. One is the Indic perspective. How has the humanity come up to be so diverse? And what is the Indic view on this? What is the Indian Vedic view on this? And on the top of it, what is the world view on this unity, oneness, and diversity? The second piece, the next 5 minutes, I'll be spending on what are the key thoughts and takeaways in a modern connected world like this. Wish to spend a couple of minutes on this profound aphorism from Chandogya Upanishad, dates back early first millennium before Common Era. It's so profound that Swamiji, in his address in 1893, in the famous address, on the sidelines, which was happening, the Parliament of Religion was happening on the sidelines of Columbian Industrial Expo, 400 years of the American excellence in the science and technology. It was a side adjunct program. Swamiji met Nikola Tesla and he shared this profound aphorism from Chandogya Upanishad, Ekoham Bahusyam. And he goes on to explain, one has manifested into many. He further explains it by saying, one element has manifested into diverse elements in the universe. Further, he says that one energy has manifested into many energies that we experience today. He also tries to explain, Nikola Tesla, that विविधता में एकत्व है. सृष्टि में जो विविधता है उसके पीछे एकत्व का सिद्धांत है। एकत्व का दर्शन करना ही विज्ञान का अंतिम लक्ष्य है। He explains by saying there is unity in diversity by way of a profound shlok. He goes on to make a very important declaration, so to say, to the scientific world, that the ultimate goal of science is nothing but finding of this unity. That is the goal of the science. And my dear friends, this was the watershed moment of Vedantic cosmology or Vedantic thoughts being propounded on unity, oneness, and diversity. And this is so relevant in this context. I'm so excited to share this, therefore. So when this thought was shared on the sidelines of this conference, Nikola Tesla, the super genius of the 19th century, immediately picked it up and started working on it. Swamiji said, can you express this in a 1-inch long mathematical formula defining energy and matter? Nikola Tesla could not do it in his lifetime. Albert Einstein, another super genius, took it from where Nikola Tesla left and started working on it. And he, as we all know, as the world knows, he came up with this, the grand unified theory in 1921. But it fails at two events, the Big Bang and the black hole, right? As we all know. Stephen Hawking, the British physicist, took it from where Albert Einstein left, the unfinished agenda, as it was called, the unfinished manuscript. So he started working on it and he propounded the theory of everything, right? And he also sort of laid it out to the entire world. It still remains unfinished. Michio Kaku, the Japanese American physicist, theoretical physicist of the present times, comes up with a God equation in 2021 during the COVID times. All that I wish to say with all this is, what started as a Vedic Indic thought few thousand years ago, what was amplified by Swami Vivekananda in his paper on Hinduism, and the later conversation with Nikola Tesla, sort of became the bedrock for the scientific world to come and understand what is this oneness, what is this unity, what is this diversity, what is this singularity. And my dear friends, this is exactly what we are today standing and looking at. What is this oneness? What is this diversity? Carl Sagan, the iconic astronomer and planetary scientist, says that about 10 million years ago, we were apes. 100 million years ago, our ancestors were rat and mouse. 500 million years ago, we were fish, ancestors were fish. About a couple of billion years ago, they were microbes. So what does it go on to say? It goes on to say that there is a unity in diversity. There is oneness. The other side of the coin is diversity. So they are pretty much the same. Bharat Varsh, our own Bharat, has embraced this diversity, inclusion, and mutual respect and oneness for a long time, thousands of years, the oldest ever civilization to do it. Today we have 80 plus faiths and religion who are finding home in India, in Bharat. We have 121 spoken languages which are respected here. And therefore, it makes huge sense for us to lead the world, to be a president, to do the presidential work for the world. Annie Besant famously said that India is a country in which every great religion finds a home. It finds a home means the religion is comfortable in a home. So what are the lessons, therefore, brothers and sisters, that we should, or we are qualified to tell to the whole world? I'll try to encapsulate that in a small 2-3 slides. Something interesting happened in the last few United Nations meetups in Rio de Janeiro and in China and other UN declarations. The thought process that clearly resonated in these United Nations meetings and the World Bank meetings, and they've started recognizing this very equivocally, is to place culture at the heart of sustainable development. They said social development, economic development has to be an integral part or integral fabric of the native culture and the native tradition. If these are not integrated, rapid success or inclusive success won't be possible. One size fits all, Didi has rightly pointed out, one size fits all model has miserably failed, and therefore the sustainable development model or the economic development model or the women rights have not been well captured in the one size fits all. It has to be integrated and also interpreted. We have to interpret these constructs in the context of the local culture and the local tradition, because they form the basic fabric for thousands of years. The other point that I want to drive home is we are today in a completely flat world. Thomas Friedman has rightly written a book, a beautiful book, The World is Flat. And it's been a while now. It's been almost a decade, little less than a decade, that this book became a world bestseller. The world is flat. But today, when we look back, the world is so flat. The world is so connected. Let's take two recent examples as a case study. When there was someone sneezed, किसी ने छींका Wuhan, China में, the whole world caught cold, right? And we are still facing the cold, the sneeze of that one Wuhan virus or the one Wuhan sneeze that we had. And it quickly spread all around the world on the biological side. Now let's come on the technological side. Very recent example. Many of us would have fiddled with the technology. Many of us Google, when we want to answer, get some answer, we Google and ask Google what the answer is. Today's generation open up Chat GPT. It's an open AI artificial intelligence platform, and they type for an answer, and the artificial intelligence gives a human-like response with emotions embedded. Now, what that has to do with a connected world? First time in the history of any product or in the history of any company, on planet Earth, this product called Chat GPT, open artificial intelligence product, reaches to 5 million users from Silicon Valley to Shillong. In just 5 days, millions of users are connected or are using Chat GPT. So there has been never a more connected world than this. If that is the kind of speed at which we are all connected, millions and billions of people, by just one message, by just one email, by just one technological intervention. So should the definitions of concepts, very profound concepts like minority, which has a daily bearing on us, should these definitions be not looked from a global construct? Right? This is the time we looked at things from a global construct. Today, you build products for the world. Today, you build solutions for the world. So this concept of minority has to be a global construct. It cannot be a national construct. Coming to very important points, and this discussion keeps happening on the human rights protection model, right? Every time we hear about the human rights protection, should we not look at human rights from a perspective of being sensitive towards whether it's a human rights violation or it's not a human rights violation from the native tradition and culture's perspective? It's high time we did that. Human rights is looked at from a point of view of what the native community out there thinks about it. Is there a violation? Is it right or wrong? Right? As opposed to one straight definition which comes from a textbook, right? One standard definition. One there cannot be a straight fit. Didi has rightly pointed this out, and I would also like to echo it very strongly, very equivocally. The other thing about human rights is today human rights often is ascribed from an individualistic perspective, right? But we don't live in a contractual society. We live in a relation-based society. It has to be necessarily looked from a point of view of a broader context of family, broader context of a society, broader context of a nation at large. And how does that impact at these levels and not just at the level of an individual? It has to be family, society, and the nation. And yes, respecting native tradition for all the above said reasons becomes so very important to preserve diversity, equity, inclusion, and mutual respect. My dear friends, India has shown the light to the world, and definitely you are the light, we are the light. Thank you so very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Ramakrishnan ji. Very objective presentation. Thank you for the time, in keeping in the time. I will also not take more time. I now request to our fifth speaker, Professor Bhagat Oinam. Quickly, a quick introduction to Professor. He teaches philosophy at Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU. Is also the director of Jawaharlal Nehru Institute of Advanced Study, JNU. In addition, he is a chairperson, Center for Philosophy, and chairperson, Special Care for the Study of Northeast India. Earlier, he taught philosophy at IIT Bombay and Northeast Hill University, Nehru in short, and Shillong. He works on philosophical anthropology, social, cultural philosophy, ethics, and aesthetics. In addition, he's also working on indigenous knowledge traditions. Today, he will be speaking on the indigenous faith and the idea of resilience in the cultural life, world of the Northeast communities, and keeping in the theme of this engagement group. Professor Bhagat, please.
Thank you. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, you are.
I'm sorry that I could not listen to some of the speeches earlier because of the connectivity issues. Luckily, now that I'm in, the topic that has been given to me is on the issues of indigenous faith. Though it is a very wide global practices under the name of indigenous faith, you see across the continents, whether it is in Africa, Latin America, or in Asia. I would like to confine myself within the discourse in Indian context. But having said that, discussion on the indigenous, the term itself stands out, cannot be exclusively talked and in isolation about India alone, because the term indigenous refers to, as we see in the global context, to those communities who have been living and who have lived long before what you call the migrant populations came and overpowered them over a period of time. And this is all that we know about the Native Americans in America and Canada. You know about this in Latin America experiences before the advent of the Spanish colonizers. And you find a similar experience in Africa. So the term indigenous often is referred to the first settler or those who have lived before what you call the colonial migrant came into those regions. So when you translate this indigenous into the Indian context, particularly two Hindi terms comes in our common vocabulary. One is Adivasi and another is Janajati. Now the point is that the translation itself, and as you know, the translation is not a very what you call stereotypical transposition of meaning, but it also carries several worldviews or what you call a cosmology of its own. Now, the term Adivasi implies to those communities who have lived prior to a community who comes, a migrant community. That is to say that this Adivasis lived before the major communities came into those regions. So this theorizing or this mere translation of these communities as Adivasi endorses the idea though that the majority community came from somewhere else. And this is a big issue. And perhaps I will also not like to buy this translation of Adivasi with indigenous. The other translation is Janajati, that the people who lived in commune, if I have to use the term, that who are more organic in nature and they live together and assign a sense of belongingness internally generated and less prone to mixing up with other communities you call as indigenous. This is the general understanding. So Janajati might be a better translation I see. But there is another conception on indigenous which I am referring back to a philosopher in 20th century India called K.C. Bhattacharya. According to him, indigenous refers to those communities who are non-modern and non-Western. It is more than the community, it is about the worldview and the practices and value system associated with the community. So to that extent, the entire Indian philosophical thoughts and worldviews, traditionally speaking, could be considered as indigenous, that they are non-Western and non-modern. It has its local root. But then the problem arises is how do you explain those communities whom the Indian Constitution has used the term as tribal? You have a particular category called scheduled tribe under the scheduled of this marginalized community. So to put all the Indian worldviews and traditions within the indigenous for a larger understanding of the worldviews makes sense, but for the practical purposes in terms of affirmative actions and so on, it becomes little more problematic. But I would like to go for a wider understanding of this term. Now, when we talk of the indigenous faith, and this will imply even to many of the Hindu traditions as well. When we talk of the indigenous faith, often we talk about this view that these indigenous religions believe that everything in this world has a spirit, that all that we see around in this world, materials world, are all embodiment of a spirit. And this is what the colonialist or those forces of colonialism tried to explain these communities as primitive and less civilized, saying that these people sees spirit in a stone, sees spirit in a tree, sees spirit in a mountain. So these are very, very primitive thought. Only spirit you can think is that of the Holy Spirit or some of the divine force which is of a very transcendent nature. So you can see that how the narrative that has been given to the indigenous or the primitive with a particular terminology is called animism came to be used. So those people who believes that there are spirits in nature, every part of the nature has a spirit, are called as animists. And these people had been looked in down to an extent that they are not so well developed in terms of thinking processes, in terms of philosophy, in terms of worldviews. So, keeping that in mind, I would also like to draw your attention that recently few environmentalists, feminists, and you may also call some philosophers. I'm talking of Bert Davis and others who are arguing out that, well, this idea that nature has a spirit should be seen more in terms of nature being looked as persons. So you can see a shift in the vocabulary. And this shift in the vocabulary among these environmentalists or what you call feminists and philosophers are not without a reason. There are certain reasons behind which they have shifted the discourse. Now we know that in 20th century and 21st century, how the development processes across the globe have negatively destroyed the environment and how the environmental status are throughout the globe. So there seems to be a larger interest among the theoreticians to look at nature having certain autonomy. Nature not to be merely consumed, but has certain autonomous status. And there is a long debate in the West how much autonomy you can give to a nature vis-a-vis the humans. So these theoreticians go back to animism, which they have somehow, I'm talking of the European narrative, which somehow they have tried to downgrade this worldview, saying that nature, the believer, that nature has spirit embedded. Every part of nature has spirits in plural embedded. So they are animist, they are primitive. From this worldview, over a century, because of their own concerns related to developmental project, the issue of autonomy, issue of sustainability, these discourses emerges. And these discourses have led them to rethink on the idea of animism. And they start arguing that instead of the spirit, the natures or parts of the nature by the animists believe that they are persons. So personhood is something that is acceptable to the academic world. But the spirit is something perhaps today's academic world are yet to grapple with positively or sympathetically. Now, I want to argue that we don't have to be shy away. We don't have to be following these scholars and see that the idea of spirit embedded in the nature is a far-fetched idea, a deep thinking idea. Now, I would like to submit that the idea of the spirit and the body has always been a discourse throughout the world, in every civilizations, in every philosophical traditions. And we try to see the spirit and the body as binary. Now, instead of the word spirit, if somebody is little apprehensive about, one might start thinking that is there non-bodily aspect in a body? Because body seems to be always freezed, static. But the human body is not freezed and it not static. So there are tangible things which you call as body, and perhaps there are intangible things about this body which we cannot see, which we call Atma in many traditions or spirit in many other traditions. So we keep this open-ended, not by giving a definitive definition or description about what spirit is. But if we, for the time being, use the word spirit for that intangible part, that we cannot see, yet we intuitively feel that there is something intangible about this body itself. I am a thinking being. I am a feeling being. Sometimes I also intuit. So perhaps this is what we need to really look into. Let me give an
Bhagat,
example.
Professor
Am I
Bhagat,
already through with 10
no,
minutes?
yeah, yeah. In fact, we are crossing a time limit. We have Pujya Swamiji
So
also. I request you, to
I have
kindly
not
wind
even
up.
come to the northeast, but anyway, in 2 minutes time, I will wind up.
Please, please.
So I will give an example of this indivisibility of the bodily and the non-bodily with a particular illustration from the Ao Naga traditions. Among the Ao Naga traditions, in their creation myth, what you may call cosmology, they say all the Aos, this Ao Naga community is one of the communities speaking a different language, and they believe that they all came out of 6 stones, patthar. 6 पत्थरों से ये इंसान जाग उठे. The Aos community emerged from 6 stones. Now, naturally, this is a very quote unquote stupid, primitive concept. But if you look at this, the thought itself throws open to our thinking process that perhaps the divide between the animate and the inanimate, the bodily and the spirit, is a very stereotypical division. Further, they say these 6 stones, what they call lung terok, are 3 males and 3 females. And look at this, what you call in the modern terminologies, gendering of the body, gendering of the inanimate. What you would have thrown away as merely body, static as inanimate, has been brought along with something called life, that is the human, and that stone, which you call as inanimate, are being gendered as male and the female. Now, I'm not going into the realist interpretation of this, but this is a myth. And myth has to be understood in terms of the purpose that the community believes. And the purpose is, I believe, and I see, is the inseparability of the inanimate from the animate, life from the non-life, body from the non-body, tangible from the intangible. And if you look closer, perhaps some of the what you call Vedic traditions even talk about this much more in details. And to that extent, if you go a little more philosophically, what K.C. Bhattacharya was talking about, the Indian philosophical traditions, in which I will like to bring the indigenous thought too, are non-Western and has to be given a different discourse altogether and not always seen through the Western methodological paradigms. I'm sorry, I wish I had more time. I took too long in methodology, but then this is a problem with professors being asked to speak for 10 minutes.
Professors and philosophy. Anyway, thank you, Professor Bhagatji. And we are already running out of time, and we are now skipping the question answer session right here. And then because Pujya Swamiji has also other commitments, may I request now Pujya Swamiji to kindly address this gathering. I need not introduce Pujya Swami to this gathering. He's already known. He's a senior disciple of Param Pujya Swami Dayanand Saraswati and a founder of Acharya of the Arsha Vidya Mandir, through which he is serving the society. Pujya Swamiji, may I request you to kindly address the participants here.
Namaste to all of you. Dr. Shashi Balaji, Adarniya Nivedita ji, Vinayak ji, and distinguished speakers. Since we have already crossed the boundaries of the time, nor I will talk about the paper, though it's well-written paper, the concept paper, and will be summarized by Nivedita ji. Few suggestions in nutshell, because each one of us have some time constraint. It is well acknowledged by all of us that there is a diversity, which is talked about in our Vedas from time immemorial. But there is one thing that is unique, which we can tell them. C20 can have a punchline. What is the reason of sensitivity, the compassion? What caused all this? It is like when we say harmony in diversity, it is like musical symphony. When this modern, some musical concert is there, there may be more than 100, 200 players and more than 30, 40 instruments are played. But still there is one raga. There is harmony. There is something pleasing to your ears. Some tune is there. Because all of them play to one raga. They don't play what they like to play. They play only that what they are supposed to play. Exactly like somebody on bongo or tabla keep drumming. And there may be one who is holding one triangular steel instrument, and after every 2 minutes or 1 minute, he will just do ting, ting, ting. Meaning what one should be doing, they are doing to create harmony. In a civilized society, harmony can be created only when society is committed to duty, not the rights. The whole civilization is in the name of freedom, in the name of human rights. In India, we never had human rights department. This is after 90s United Nations resolution. It came to us and law department was given rights. The harmony is there when you conform to your duty. And there is disharmony when you talk of only rights. If I put it this way, you talk of rights, there are going to be fights only. Secondly, the society will become a litigant society. All Western societies are litigant societies. Anything is there, it is against my right, and you sue the somebody. If the door is not properly opened and it hits you, you can sue the person. You can sue your employer. You can sue the Swamis also. If they come to ashram and if the food somehow it has some problem, this duty is something. My duty is your right, and your duty is my right. Husband's duty is a right of the wife, and the wife's duty is the right of the husband. When it is a duty-based society, we get automatically our rights fulfilled. And therefore, we never had human rights department. So the symphony or the harmony at societal level, one at absolute level, what rightly Ramakrishnaji quoted, Upanishad mantras. There are so many mantras. Sarvam khalvidam brahma isha vasyamidam sarvam neyananaste kinchan, etc. But at Vyavharik level, and I would quote here Gandhiji in his book Hind Swaraj, which he wrote when he moved back from Africa to India. He clearly mentions, I quoted this in National Committee, I am to be member of that 75th committee, that his vision of Bharat independence is not simply political independence. His vision of independence was that each citizen should become conscious about his duty. At the time of Vajpayee's government, Millennium Report, it was tabled in Rajya Sabha. What did the SWOT analysis of what we get in educational policy? It is clearly mentioned that Rashtra Bhavana, which we had before independence, has slowly and steadily decreased. Our education system has failed. Ethical values has failed because we never emphasized on duty-based society. In that culture, there is no word called duty. To all the learned members and speakers, I would like to add here, our marriage is for duty. The very meaning of dharma is kartavya, not sampradaya. Dharma doesn't mean faith. Dharma doesn't mean to believe in something, some particular God, particular book, particular lingas, chinhas. That is not dharma. Kartavya is dharma. You open Mahabharata, you open Ramayana, you open any Purana, there are chapters and chapters talking about Brahman Dharma, Kshatriya Dharma, Vaishya Dharma, Brahmachari Dharma, Sanya. Dharma is a basis of this country. We never had a problem because it is a Dharma Kshetra. That is why the word for husband and wife is Sah Dharmachari, Sah Dharmacharini. Even now we use the word, man says, she is my Dharma Patni. Dharmartha Patni. If I go one step further, even grammar, Panini grammar adds Patyuhu Nitya Yagna Sanyoge na Adeshasya. So from Pati Patni comes who is for Dharma. Marriage is for Dharma. Now, since they have no concept of duty, they only know heavy duty and light duties. We can use this slogan, or we can, I would request Nivedita ji and Shashi Balaji to think over this. When you perform a duty, you have to be a giver. Human being, what is a modern society? Approach was mentioned by a couple of distinguished speakers. Consumerist approach. If you look at globally, many systems of ruling were there in last century, but now it is only democracy. And only one policy of ruling is prevailing across the world, that is enhancement of GDP. The performance of the government is measured on the Bombay Stock Exchange indexes, Delhi Stock Exchange indexes. Nobody talks about health index of a government. Nobody talks about educational index of the government. Nobody reports of the law and order index of the government. Nobody reports to cultural index of the government. Good, Bhutan has introduced this index of happiness, but this is missing. Now, therefore, consumer, it has a basis. This is from Adam Smith, economist, who propagated this capitalist model. It is a basis in their theology. That is a basic misconception which has caused this problem. It is exactly like somebody had sent me one WhatsApp about a decade ago. He says, human being cut the tree and created a paper, and after 10 years, he writes human rights, save trees on the paper and sticks it on the tree. We have created problem and we write this. Now talk about the solution. The Christian theology, God created man in his image and the world is for man's consumption. All the three Abrahamic religion has this basis. We are the pinnacle of this creation and everything else is meant for our enjoyment, including women in some of the Abrahamic religion. Therefore, they don't have ahimsa value. Otherwise, they can't eat non-veg. Now, here, since we are a consumer, we can have this vakya, consumer to contributor. Each one of you is consuming everything, not only natural resource, you consume knowledge, you consume the culture, you consume society. You become contributor only after marriage when the duties come in. So the civil society should become consumer, from consumer to contributor. We say, and this word, what all the speakers said, we can coin a new word. Hindu, what Nivedita ji very rightly said, emphasized on the spirituality. Our spiritual vision is the whole world is expression of, we don't say God. Let us use the word one divinity, non-dual divinity. Since each one of us is expression of divinity, and the theme that you help those who are deprived, look at our sensitivity. Hindu cultural sensitivities can be glorified. This is a window for us. This is a message what India can give. Since there is one divinity, therefore there is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is attitude. Isha avasyam idam sarvam, or sarvam khalu idam brahma, is a vision. Now that attitude translates in our cultural forms. Every village has bird feeder, cement bird feeder. Every village has some place where cows and dogs are fed, even cities. And last but not the least, the South Indian homes always had a rangoli. In the north, because of Muslim impact, is gone. But if you go to Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, they still have rangoli. The north rangoli is of artificial colors. They do their rangoli, if you notice, it is only white. It is white because it is made out of rice flour. Those insects and ants can get the food. That is my contribution. Even now in Gujarat and few places in Madhya Pradesh, they go to garden, and when there is an ant hill, they put the floor. That contributory attitude is there in our cultural forms, and the whole process of growth, the metrics of measuring growth, parameter of measuring growth should not be only economic growth. We hear in the newspaper the wealth of the wealthiest Indian so-and-so is 1,80,000 crores, blah, blah, blah. Forbes 500 and Fortune 500. But then the growth of a human being lies in the sense of you becoming a contributor. Our Hindu society never ever respected the one who aggrandized, one who possessed more, one who ruled more. We always respected who contributed more. That is why sannyasis are the most respectable people. That is why Gandhiji was respected. That is why Rama is accepted, because he was a duty-bound person. Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma. That is, if you think so, this theme, consumer to contribute. Unless every citizen of the world takes upon itself this attitude, no policy can solve the problem, for we have created a contradictory, totally opposite value today. More you have, more you are respected. In other words, we have a Kama Pradhana Samaj. They are that Kama Pradhan Dharmas only. They talk of Kama only, only Purushartha. Going to heaven and getting hurrays and going to heaven and dinner is all Kama. And for Kama, Artha is a Pradhana, buying power. So we have created Artha Kama Pradhana society. We have to transfer into Dharma Pradhana. And Kama, what we said, all of them said, especially Shashi Balaji emphasized about greed. It is natural. Bhagavan says in 3rd chapter of Gita, Arjuna says, what causes them papam? Anichannapi varshnaya baladiva niyojita. Kena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha. Bhagavan says, kama esha krodha esha. Mahashano mahapap. Ashana, food is, it is endless Mahapapa. Today we see more you have, more you want, and more shortcuts. And that is why there is a pseudo sensitivity. There is a pseudo laws and pseudo things to help others. This is one thing. Consumer to contributor, duty-based society. One more thing also we can highlight. Acharya Sabha was very responsible for promoting International Day of Yoga. I myself had suggested, and we have been working since 2009-10 when I saw yoga is hijacked. Yoga is popular. Now, new definition of yoga can be introduced in the sense of sensitivity and compassion. Very aptly told by Nivedita ji. There is one verse in the 6th chapter, Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukham sayogi paramogata. भगवान कहते हैं दूसरों के दुख में दुखी होना, दूसरों के सुख में सुखी होने वाली व्यक्ति मेरी दृष्टि में परम योगी है. We can float, this is a narrative we can create that you can be yogi by doing asana pranayama, but you can be param yogi when you can empathize the word rather than compassion. You can empathize, you can be that. Third thing, about Sarva Samaveshi approach. India is the only country, ours is the only culture, I am very proud to tell this. The religion-based riots took place in the middle of the 14th or 15th century only. Till then, we never had any fights on the basis of religious differences. We had Charvaka also. The consumerism is not new to us. Yavat jivet sukham jivet runam krutva ghrudam pivet basmi putasya dehasya punaragamanam kudahi. That was a thing. But still we respected him as a rishi. Religious intolerance. That looking down upon them because my God is only God. My view is only view. And we have the sole right for your salvation. That is a problem. We can push this in a human rights. The Human Rights Declaration of 1950s, which was edited. Puja Swamiji went there in Netherlands on the 60th anniversary and we got edited. That can be pushed through C20 to ANO. That to convert by alluration or deceit is against human right, and each one has a freedom to follow the faith. That should be emphasized. They have destroyed. They say they are primitive and old, and this is all namesake. Ultimately, that mandate, he is the only savior, and I'll come, that Good Friday message, I shall come again when everybody is converted. That is a message. This is all facade they talk about. We have to take them head on. It is against human right to denigrate somebody's faith, to say something because it is a matter of emotions. Any emotional thing you cannot say good or bad. And the simple example is the story of Akbar and Bilbal. Every child is the most beautiful child for every mother. Not only the prince of the king, but the Jhaduwali, the Gutterwali lady's child also is a prince because emotions. So whatever their faiths are there, you have to respect. Mutual respect is a value I think we need to push further. That is, if you don't respect, it is against human rights. To say this, ours is the only way. We are the only, even you would be shocked to know, this Vatican, there are so many sectors of the Christianity. Vatican had audacity to write that we are the only salvific religion. They will not accept us. The C20 can talk about, and one thing to put them in the back seat, culturally and religiously, you can push. I'll put it in short. When we talk of equality, when we talk of deprive, this is one pin we can pressure them. That women women should have equal rights to become religious. India is the best example. Now, sannyasis were only men. Now you see thousands of sannyasinis, and fortunately, this C20 is led by Amma. You can exemplify that. Amma is a religious leader. They don't have religious leader in the women. And not only women, we can tell even the transgenders akhada is there. Our 13 akhadas, they had only male, but now there is one new Mahamandaleshwar. Acharya Mahamandaleshwar, one women akhada, and there is transgender akhada. That also we can showcase. We can talk us that you are primitive and backward, and there is a disrespect for women and disrespect, child abuse and transgender. We can say this. You can showcase them also. I'll help you to get that Mahamandaleshwar, Akhada Mahamandaleshwar, and come there and talk if you feel like. And last thing, which in my conclusion, what Nivedita ji has said is true. Minority concept, especially we have to create noise. Religious minority concept is there only and only in India. Nowhere in the world. So we have to talk about that. Secondly, we have to talk about global minority, and certainly uniform methods to implement anything doesn't work. The 1951 resolution of United Nations was pushed by Christian lobby, which is dominated by them. They want the whole world to be Christian. They want Muslim. One is by force, one is by deceit and strategy. So we have to take them head on this issue of no single solution. And we have to insist, I feel, what was told that some traditions don't have a voice. It may be a small tradition. Let us create a new organization where they can come together, and one representative from their organization can come to those main body of the United Nations. All what Shashi Balaji said, all Asian communities were happy because they lived a life of Dharma. Even Sri Lankan culture, top duty. Their familial values, their social values, Nepalese culture, Bhutan culture is all based on Vedic culture, and that is true. Human being is not the master of the universe. We have to say we share the same biological space as any other living creature. We are not the unique. We have to thrash that concept. And this economic model should be revived. That capitalist approach, more you have, more you become respectable. Emphasize more contributor you become, more you become respectable. And here again, you can exemplify India's glory, especially if Shashi Balaji and Nivedita ji knows this, and all of you must be knowing and noted. These Padma awards are given to contributors, unknown contributors, silent contributors. These awards are given. And what was said, nature, I remember, I conclude with this. My mother was Ayurveda Acharya. She was silver medalist then. As a child, I being youngest, our house was near the main market in Baroda. It was my duty to fetch the vegetables and the fruits. I always used to ask her, what should I bring? Her standard reply was, what is the cheapest vegetable available, you bring. And then I thought she is stingy. So other day when I asked her, she said, looking at the climate, looking at your DNA, looking at your body politics, etc., what that Pradesh ke logo ko jo फल फूल चाहिए, जो सीजन में चाहिए, वो ही भगवान ने उगाए. कई फ्रूट्स साउथ में नहीं मिलते हैं, कई साउथ में मिलते हैं, वो नॉर्थ में नहीं मिलते. Again, for millennia, before this transport industry developed, before this preservation industry developed, refrigeration, etc., We lived in indigenous products only. Never, we don't have any hereditary diseases or DNA problems. So indigenous food can be emphasized, which all the culture lived. And this is a window to showcase our Ayurveda. This is a window to showcase organic food. That if this is that is what Indian way of living. We always had organic life. That is why Go Mata is a Mata, because I don't want to get into that and give a long lecture, but it was organic farming. Even fertilizers and pesticides is Gomutra and Gobar. So that if we can showcase a few things, I am sure all the 5 or 6, whatever the cultural and this major exploration we are talking about, diversity, inclusion, and all that can be covered, and India can be leader in providing this cultural leadership. With this word, I really thank you, all of you. Though I took little 5-7 minutes more than what I wanted to finish. And thank you, Nivedita ji, for giving me this opportunity to share some of our scripture views. And by the way, 2 things, I am not Paramananda, I am Paramatmananda. Okay, just because there is a confusion and then people look for Paramananda and they don't find me on this. So just Namaste ji. And excuse me, I have to
Namaste.
leave shortly because I have some commitment at 7:30 somewhere. I will leave right now. Pardon me for that. Namaste.
Namaste, Vidya Swamiji.
I'll not be available for questions. Okay, sorry.
No, in fact, we do not. Sayanti, are there any questions? I don't think, because there are few which we said will, regarding webinars and later discussions, where we'll be organizing many more such webinars and very focused discussion. There was one, Meenakshi, Shivram. We'll definitely get back. I think with this, since we are already running out of time, we will, if there is anything, I request all the participants to kindly write to us. We have in the chat box given the email ID as well. And this whole webinar will be uploaded also. And we are not, in fact, there are not many questions except for that. Are we having any more such webinars or on specific sub themes and all? Yes, we'll do that. And once we do that, we'll get across to you. With this, may I request Professor Dr. Amarjeet Lochanji to kindly offer the vote of thanks.
Namaste. It was a great feast of learning for all of us. And this program under C20, which has been waited so long for by many of us, have got all the ideas and views, which are not only ideals, but very easy to cope up with. To the IT team, because they did make that, because it is a very tough job to handle on WebEx, and I'm very grateful to all of you support team. Our program on C20, which featured so many learned 6 speakers, each of them has a different blossoming flower. And Nivedita ji was so kind enough to be speaking on such a multilateral subject, which is uniting all of us. And followed President of International Council of Center for Cultural Studies, where I am General Secretary. It is a great pleasure to hear her all the time. She gave full length of the understanding on the subject, which makes us united in every affair. This diversity, inclusion, and mutual respect is written in our life and DNA. These all have been found in the speech made by Joram Begi, a national coordinator C20, and also coordinating on behalf of Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture. Ramakrishnan co-founder of Life Limited Company, including Mac's global partners, he had put the words what Puja Swami Paramatmanandaji spoke about, that this harmony is most important in our life, and I'm sure everyone has enjoyed learning from him. Professor speaks a lot, but he spoke so beautifully on the subject of indigenous thing, which makes us understand how we have to be very careful and choosy about the words and translating them into our own mother tongue, which makes us understand that there is a problem behind the meaning. Sometimes we have to use our mind and concise knowledge, which makes us together. So I'm very grateful to Professor Bhagat Onamji also for this. In this entire program, which has been attended by so many people, 100 plus all the time, and I'm very grateful to the Pankaj ji who literally brought me in. Shashi Balaji was very kind enough to ask me for doing that, and I am not going to be very long. And I'm very much grateful to all of you to join this webinar. And as very rightly said by Dr. Shashi Balaji in some similar webinar in coming days, with these words, I say thank you one and all. Namaste.
Thank you, Professor Amarjeet ji. Thanks for your time and being with us for so long. Thank you. With this, may I now request Sainti Didi to kindly end with the Santi path.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तः शान्तः शान्तिः
Thank you.